Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm super excited that you clicked on today's video. My name is Ronnie, and this video is on behalf of Remember Ministries. Remember Ministries is a growing group of disciples hungry to know and love God more. If you'd like to join us on our pursuit in knowing and loving God more, join us every Sunday at 2 p.m. for Bible study and every Thursday at 9 p.m. for our weekly prayer call. The conference number is in the description. Each month, we focus on one spiritual discipline to study together, and this month, we're studying the spiritual discipline of sanctuary. Prayerfully, I will have a video dedicated to that spiritual discipline up next week. But a part of us being the sanctuary of God is being physically fit and physically able to complete the tasks that God has assigned to us. Some of us are living to eat instead of eating to live, and that is hindering us from completing our God-given assignment. We are polluting the temple of God with the standard American diet, and it decreases our ability to work effectively for the kingdom of God. It is important now more than ever to invest in your own health, to be skeptical about the food industry, and to build a personal relationship and connection with your food. I'm sorry, y'all, I have a splitting headache. So as I go to talk about being well and being healthy, my throat hurts, my head hurts. Oh, please pray for me. I'm drinking some throat coats and I took a Tylenol, so hopefully by the end of this video, I'll feel a little bit better. America has shown us over and over again that they're more invested in making a dollar and preserving the interests of those big food companies than they are in investing in the health and wellness of the people, or even giving us accurate and honest information about the food that we consume. You'd be surprised how many lies are on the food labels. Buying and preparing nutritious and whole foods may seem burdensome and very expensive at first glance. But when you begin to calculate the cost of co-payments for doctor's visits, co-payments for prescriptions, and the burden of being sick, eating healthy actually turns out to be cheaper and more worthwhile than we think. God gave Israel very specific and strict diets in the Old Testament. But Jesus released them from those restrictions and gave us the freedom to choose the do's and don'ts of our own diet. There is no specific diet plan laid out in scripture for us to follow. So for all you vegans out there who think you're better than us, you're not. Joking. Okay, so before we jump into the tips that I have for saving money on healthy foods, let's first take a quick glance of some of the guidance that the Bible gives us concerning our food choices. Romans chapter 14 is a chapter where Paul talks about the liberty that we have in choosing our foods. But he goes on in that chapter to say that sometimes our food choices can be a stumbling block. You can cause someone else to stumble by what you choose to eat, but most importantly, you can cause a stumbling block to yourself. So while we have the freedom to eat anything we want, if you know you have high blood pressure, ramen noodles are a stumbling block for you. If you're a diabetic, donuts and chips are a stumbling block for you. So we have the freedom, but we don't want to stumble because of our food. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 23 through 31 talks about eating based on your convictions. And this is a category where veganism and pescatarianism fit in. Some people do actually feel a burden towards the way that the animals are treated and what they are fed in our food industry, and they decide not to eat meat. So if you in your conscience feel like meat is not for you, then it's biblical for you to choose not to eat it. Paul ends this passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 saying, whatever we eat or whatever we drink, do it all for the glory of God. Okay, another thing that the Bible describes to us about our food choices is that it consistently talks about discipline. So we should exercise self-discipline in what we choose to eat, and especially the amount of things that we choose to eat. We all need self-discipline. 1 Corinthians 9:27, Paul says he disciplines his body and brings it under strict control. We should not be dominated or controlled by our bellies or by our food. The Bible also warns us against the deadly sin of greed. So while eating a specific food is not a sin, being greedy is a sin. I actually was recently in a Bible study hosted by my mentor, Rev Lettie Carr, and she goes into details about the impact of greed. So I'll have that video linked in the description. Okay, the last example we'll talk about for how the Bible instructs us to eat is in Daniel. Daniel chapter 1:8 says, Daniel determined that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine he drank. So we all know the story of Daniel and how him and his friends decided not to partake in the food served to them by the Babylonians. This was based on his own conviction. This was based on the traditions that were passed down to him from his family. And it was based on Daniel making a decision to set himself apart from the unbelievers surrounding him. So again, eating a specific food is not sinful, but being conformed to the world is. And we can learn from Daniel how we get to choose what we eat, what we don't eat, based on our connection and relationship with God the Father. Now, let's jump into the 6 ways that I save money on healthy, whole, nutritious foods. The first one may seem obvious to some people, but it took me a little while to catch up. And that is where you choose to shop. Many name brand stores like Giant and Safeway are getting hit with the greatest amount of inflation, and therefore they have to share that inflation burden with the consumer. So I now frequent places like Trader Joe's, Lidl, and Aldi's to get healthy food with cheaper tags. I frequently found organic, no sugar added, or foods without dye at Aldi and Lidl for the same price as the non-organic option, and much cheaper than I found those same things at other grocery stores. The downfall, of course, of these places is that if you're looking for something specific, they may be out of stock or not carried at all. But I found that shopping at grocery stores I know keep the prices low very beneficial. The other thing is shopping in bulk. Even if you don't need that large quantity of food, buy it in bulk and then figure out ways to preserve it. And that leads me to point number 2, which is food preservation. Now, I'm not talking about canning foods, pressure cooking, or vacuum sealing anything. I'm talking basic ways to make your fresh food last longer. The first thing is simple, and that's by freezing your food. I like to buy things like onions, peppers, garlic, turmeric, ginger, spinach, kale, fresh fruit, especially berries and avocados, in bulk, and then freeze it. The second way is by extending the shelf life of the things that you buy. Things like carrots and celery. If you wash them off, cut them up, and then put them in a sealed container with water in the fridge. It keeps the carrots and the celery crispy and fresh for like a month. Avocados, put them in a mason jar, fill that mason jar up with water, seal the top, put it in the fridge. You take that avocado out of the fridge a few days before you want to eat it, and it'll soften right up on the counter. Or you can cut your ripe avocado in half, scoop out each half, and put it in the freezer in a Ziploc bag. You can take that frozen avocado and throw it in your smoothies, or even let it thaw out and make some fresh guacamole. Next, we all know that you can freeze your meats. Even better, you can wash that meat off, season it, put some marinade on it, and then stick it in the fridge so that when you take it out, it's just literally ready to cook. Don't forget to label the things that you put in bags before you put them in the freezer, because I frequently forget to do this all the time, and we're kind of like, hey, we're having this mystery meat for dinner. It always turns out good, but it's better if I knew what it was by first labeling it. The last way that I try to extend the shelf life of certain foods is for berries. This process went viral a few years ago when this blogger named The Cross Legacy posted how she makes her berries last for 14 days. I'll have the video linked, but the gist of it is you get your berries, Wash them off, which, side note, the reason why you wash the food off is to rinse away the pesticides that may have been sprayed from them in the grocery store, or to just wash away the germs from them having sat out in public. I personally like to use Trader Joe's fruit and vegetable wash, but any combination of like water, vinegar, and baking soda does the same thing. After you wash the fruit off, you let it drain in a colander, and then you put them out, lay them out to dry on a paper towel. This drying process takes about 2 to 4 hours, but it's definitely worth it. After your fruit is completely dry, you take a little piece of paper towel, put it at the bottom of the mason jar, and put your berries on top. Seal that bad boy up, stick it in the fridge, and your berries will last much longer. The Cross Legacy said 14 days. I don't know about 14 days, but I know they last longer than they did before I started doing this process. My mother is also super impressed by this method as well. Okay. The third way I'm saving money on fresh, nutritious food is by making double batches and freezing half. You cook twice the amount of food in one day, and then you save some of that food for another time, especially things like soup and chili. I use Ziploc bags to do this, but I'm sure there's probably a better way. If you have a better way to freeze your chili and your soup, let me know down in the comments. Now I've also started double batching my bread. I bake 2 loaves and I freeze 1. The reason why double batching saves you money is that you're able to use up those healthy ingredients that you bought and freeze them in a meal before you have to trash it because it went bad. Number 4 is to have a scrap bag. And this is actually my favorite one, and it creeps my husband out. Here's how it works. When you're chopping up your fresh veggies, throw the butts, the end pieces, the slices that you otherwise wouldn't use, all in one bag. When you're chopping the onion or the celery or the zucchini, take that little piece on the end and put them all in one big bag and stick it in the freezer. Every time you cook, add those little bitty pieces to the bag in the freezer. Once you get a bag or 2 full, you can dump all of those veggies into the crock pot with some water, some vinegar, and some slices of ginger. Let it cook on low for like 12 hours. Once that's finished, you strain all of those veggies out. You can finally throw them in the trash, and you have some fresh, healthy vegetable broth. This will save you tons of money every year on buying vegetable broth, and you can also do the same for your bone broth. Make it at home. It tastes better anyway. Okay, number 5 is to use the right drawers in your refrigerator. I think this is one lesson that I totally missed in adulthood, and that's the fact that the refrigerator actually has specific drawers for specific things. And there's usually even a little picture on there to tell you what that drawer should be used for. If you use the drawers the way that the refrigerator intended them to be used, they actually work pretty well at keeping your food in good condition. Once I started putting my lettuce in the crisper along with my carrots and my celery, it started lasting way longer. Now, I have seen other hacks for making romaine lettuce last a little longer, but I won't bore you with that. Okay, number 6 is meal plan. Oh my goodness, this has become so important for me. Meal planning means writing out what meal you're going to eat for each day of the week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and even your snacks. This has helped me cut down on food waste tremendously. First, I take inventory of what I have in my refrigerator. And if I see some things in the back or in a drawer that may be going bad, I'll immediately incorporate that thing into my next meal. Researchers in this area have shown that Americans waste about 60% of their food. Are you kidding me? You mean you go to the store, you spend $100 and $60 worth of food ends up in the trash. And this happens week after week after week. It was even a joke one time about everybody buying those little bags of spring mix just to let them sit in the refrigerator and go bad. I'm making it my business to use what I have. I don't need a specific recipe to chop up some week-old vegetables, season them up real good, add some butter, and steam them up with a side of protein. Boom, dinner. Please, woman of God, please, man of God, make your health and wellness a high priority for you this year. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Comment below with your food saving tips. Hopefully I can learn something from you. Let me know if you try any of the ones that I mentioned, and thank you for watching. Bye.